Hey guys, Dozer here bringing you a bit of an announcement before we get into the normal Flesh and Blood content. I wanted to tell you guys how we'll be distributing the content creator appreciation promos, the good deeds don't go unnoticed promos, because what better way to embody the good deeds don't go unnoticed type of card name than using those promos to help do a fundraiser for a good cause. So I'm going to be showing you guys a little bit in a second here about what the charity in question is going to be all about. And so I hope you guys consider donating to the charity, because people who donate $30 or more to this charity will get a copy of the promos, limited to 2 per person. We can't have someone buying them all out, but be sure to stay tuned here for this little bit of a explainer about the charity. And hope you guys consider it and then enjoy the Flesh and Blood content. Thanks so much for your time, and let's get right into it. And how are we going to be making sure that our good deeds don't go unnoticed and help lots of people? Well, that's going to be this charity right here, Liberty Ukraine. They are a nonprofit organization based out of Austin, Texas, who have raised over $3.6 million of relief funds to help do things as far as evacuation equipment, as well as rebuilding hospitals and so much more. So I've personally met the people who have worked at this place. They have gone over to Ukraine. They have delivered these supplies and made sure the money is helping people. And I've also really appreciate and agree with their vision on how they're trying to help people. And so please consider donating what you can to this organization, because they're doing a lot of really great work. And I think that the best way for us to use these good deeds don't go unnoticed promos is to try and put a bit of that goodwill out there into the world and make sure that we are helping people and not just helping ourselves. So what we'll be doing is we will be attaching, for every $30 donation sent to this organization, you will be receiving a good deeds don't go unnoticed promo, limited to 2 per person. And then anything above those 30 or so copies that we're able to distribute to people following their donations, we will be able to hit a $1,000 donation kind of pool, which would be fantastic if we could hit it. I'm really hoping that we can pull together as a fab community and help people all around the world, because if we can hit that and get rid of every single one of the good deeds don't go unnoticed promos, we will be attaching the Herald of Rebirth promos as well to this drive to help drive the incentive to have people donate, because you'll be getting some really sweet promos out of the deal as well, on top of helping people. And what's better than getting that win-win situation going around? So please look into the organization if you have any questions. If you have any questions as well, I can answer them directly as well through the email. And so what we'll be doing is you will send me in an email receipts of your donations, and then we'll be mailing out all of the promos to the people who are donating. So please make sure that you send all those questions and receipts to me at davidandrewsbusiness@gmail.com. That's davidandrewsbusiness@gmail.com. And hopefully we can do a really great thing here and help some people out. So thanks for the time and for listening to that little spiel. Now let's get right into the Flesh and Blood content. All right, guys, let's get into the Decktech. So it's been a little while since I gave you guys the cold Fuseless Lexi deck, where we were giving not only a lot of basic generic Lexi value into our deck list, but we were also trying to experiment with ice blues. So the main reason for that was that ice blues are really good on their own, and they also are able to synergize well with each other. Things like Channel Lake Frigid, allowing you to slow your opponent down. Maybe if you drop a hand of all blues, can be really good. But what I kind of found in my testing was that, especially against Oldhim, the ice cards just really don't do anything. He kind of just doesn't care, and sometimes you can really run out of those arrows in the end game. And on top of that, the hit to consistency off of things like your Quiver of Rustling Leaves here, or even something like your 3 of a kind turns where you need to hit as many arrows as possible, just made me think that, okay, fine, we can run the blue arrows, because it does seem to be worth it to give up the power of the ice cards. And so made a couple changes to the deck. We've still got the same equipment loadout as before. We've got our bullseye bracers to be able to give us some more ability to reload arrows and make use of these big hands from 3 of a kind, as well as to just really synergize with bolt and shot. We've also got our Spring Tunic to allow us to generate resources over the course of a longer game and really make sure that we are converting these into these really powerful turns off of things like 3 of a kind, and even just using Voltaire with that extra little bit of resource to make sure our plays are that much more efficient. New Horizon is a very key part of the deck, where we're able to really leverage the ability to use 2 arsenal slots off things like Heatseeker and Ponder tokens to be able to consistently throw out 3 attacks per turn and really pressure our opponents. Quiver of Rustling Leaves is just a great option to help give us a bit more of threat on our wider turns by using a blue that we couldn't really use in our hand to maybe get an arrow that can help us push a bit wider. Snapdragon Scalers is a great piece of equipment to help us unclog our arsenal, so sometimes we'll be really wanting to get some reload effects off, and so Snapdragon Scalers really allows us to open up that arsenal, make bigger turns, and be less worried about arsenaling extra arrows when we have too many cards to hold all at once. And then Voltaire is really key to this deck because, again, we're trying to give go again to most of our arrows and finish our turn with a +1 arrow. And Voltaire just gives us tremendous flexibility at being able to dump as many wide attacks as possible. So the big changes are we've trimmed our blue ice cards, things like Channel Lake Frigid, the Cold Snaps, the Polar Blasts, and things like that. And what we've done instead is put in some blue arrows. So we've put in blue Bolt and Shot because it's probably just one of the best blue arrows on its own. Even though it only comes in for 3 go again with a reload, so it's just a 1-card block, it still presents some threat. It still works really well on your Rainrazor's turns, and it is still a good card, so we will still be including it in the deck, as well as blue Infecting Shot, which is a arrow that you can finish your turn with as a 4-power arrow that gives Blood Rot on hit, so very powerful. And again, these are all 3 blocks, which improves on the 2 block of most of the ice cards, and gives us, again, just more consistency to all of our arrow-related effects. We will additionally be, instead of running the 3rd Ice Blue, we'll be running Widowmaker Blue, because Widowmaker prevents your opponent from playing defense reactions to its chain at all, so it kind of has that Command and Conquer effect. And if it's not defended by at least 2 cards, it has +3 attack. So if we're ending our turn with this, it's going to come in for 6 damage as a blue, which is great. It's fantastic, actually. But if our opponent blocks it with 2 cards, okay, well, now they're blocking 6. That's on average, right? That's fine. Now, there is an issue with some decks like Olden where they can just throw Crown of Seeds, a Rampart in front of this, even blocking for 0, and it's going to cut off all that extra damage. But what's really important is that this is going to force some blocks out of our opponent. Most blue arrows that I've seen people run, things like Pathing Helix Blue or Searing Shot Blue, they don't really present that much threat when not blocked, whereas Widowmaker demands your opponent lose some resources out of hand. And if they don't have more armor, like let's say they've already blocked with it that turn, or let's say you're in the end game against like a Lexi and they are out of equipments that block, well, Widowmaker can really put a lot of pressure on them. And again, preventing the D-reacts is really, really crucial as well in this late game scenario. So I think Widowmaker is fantastic for that. And then we're going to keep Frostlock because it also similarly helps disrupt all of those defense reaction plays, especially in the late game when you're trying to force through every efficient bit of damage you can. And in the late game, you're very much more likely to have your Winter Respites in hand. And so being able to pitch a blue card, use your Frostlock using Winter's Bite to present the breakpoint as well as the reduction in the ability for them to play D-Rex by increasing the cost of all their cards. It's really, really powerful to still have Frostlock as a blue arrow. It's probably one of the best ones that exists. And then we'll be keeping Winter's Bite blue just because it has that ability to force cards out of our opponent and represents a lot of really good flexible value that we're happy to run as a 2-block. Otherwise, we're still running this classic, Rainbow Bolt and Shot, Rainbow Infecting Shot. I was trying out some other things before, but I do think that Infecting Shot's raw value helps you get down to that late game scenario faster, which is where you want to be getting to force people to block. So I do think the Rainbow Infecting is probably the way to go. Drill Shot, Endless Arrow, Falcon Wing, Heatseeker, these are really common cards in Lexi these days, as well as the one of Lightning Surge to combo with your Codex of Frailty, and some Ice Quakes to strike a good balance between things like Arctic Incarceration Red, as well as your Premeditates. You'll notice that Premeditate is not in this deck list. Instead, we have Take Aim, which I think is a really crucial part of the puzzle here. Take Aim allows you to, say, reload a Bolt and Shot on a 3-of-a-kind turn before you actually activate the 3-of-a-kind, and will allow you to go that much wider on a turn by saving your Voltaire uses for other arrows. On top of that, Take Aim can help you get, just like Premeditate, right, any card out of your arsenal if it's a Bolt and Shot with the go again. But on top of that, the reload is really the big trade-off here, because why would we run the reload over the Ponder token generation? Well, the big reason that I found, besides 3-of-a-kind turns, which are extremely relevant, is that there are some turns where you just don't have a lot of resources in hand. And on those turns, take aim enables you to do things like reload a bolt and shot, give it go again. It's coming in for 7 go again off of 2 cards. Very powerful. And then if it hits, you can reload another arrow. And so a 3-card hand just became 11 damage, whereas you didn't have a blue in the first place. So take aim can really help you do that, as well as on turns where you have a bunch of blues. So like, let's say I have infecting shot red and it costs 1, and I have like a heat seeker and a blue card. Well, normally you're only going to be able to shoot one of these arrows on that turn unless you have tunic resource. But if we have take aim, we can do something like fire the infecting shot for go again. And then instead of loading the heat seeker with the 3rd resource, we can use take aim to buff it, reload it, and fire it for 8, which is going to fully use all the resources out of our hand and enable us to attack twice, whereas premeditate would only have allowed us to attack once. So there are many situations where take aim comes up that allows you to go really wide, or to get a Codex of Frailty out of your hand so that you can fire around it, keeps resources, and still throw something at your opponent. So take aim, very, very good for that. And yeah, that's basically the list. We still have Searing Shot reds, we still have Pathing Helix reds, 3 of a Kind, Rain Razors, the classic Lexi cards, as well as Codex of Frailty because it's just a really powerful card. In the sideboard, mainly, I'm just thinking of running stuff like some Phantasm Breaking cards like Down and Dirty to really make use of our Ponder and Heat Seekers to make sure that we are always getting those Phantasm Breakers no matter where we have them, if they're in the arsenal or in the hand. Death Touch also kind of helps with that as well, being an efficient attack out of arsenal that also can help us break Phantasm, as well as some equipments like the Heart of Ice against some matchups like Kano that might crop up, which also can have some interesting applications into decks like Riptide, who like to use a lot of defense reactions. Although you don't have to run into that, it's just a funny little thing. Null Room Boots, obviously just more Arcane Barrier for Kano and other, wizards, right? Perch Grapplers is good block access, although I don't find myself running this very often. I still think it's a good option to have. And then the Quiver of Abyssal Depths is basically more copies of Remembrance that you don't have to clog up in your deck to be able to play into those longer matchups. Codex of Inertia is really good into decks like Oldhim, where you're trying to really prevent them from getting their arsenal off with their Crown of Seeds. And also, if you pitch stack your deck correctly, you know what you're going to get off of it, so it's not really a downside that it's pulling off the top of the deck. And yeah, so overall, that's the updated deck list. This is what I will be bringing to the Calling Baltimore, assuming I can make it to the event. Right now, that's still a little up in the air, but I am really hoping to make it to Baltimore and to hopefully see a bunch of you there. So I will be sending out an update on Twitter if I will be attending, probably the day before or 2 days before, once I kind of iron up what I'm doing here. So thank you very much for watching. Please consider donating to the charity Liberty Ukraine that we talked about earlier in the video, so that we can get those promos out to people and hopefully do some good deeds of our own. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.